What's happening? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition. We will go back and take a look at some stakes action from this past weekend. That would be the weekend of May the 11th. But unfortunately, it's just going to be condensed into the quick hits stakes montage situation as opposed to doing a full thorough breakdown, especially considering that there's a grade 1 in there. Normally, I want to get every grade 1 we can do, but the Man of War, just because of the way that this show is going, knowing that we're starting off with the rest of the Preakness new shooter contender profiles, just from a timing standpoint, I think we'll be better off putting everything out as far as a little bit of a stakes montage. I'll give you some quick hits there, and as always, on the recap edition, we'll wrap up with the weekend's best as far as buyers are concerned. However you listen to this, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, or Spotify, please rate, review, and subscribe. Make sure on YouTube that bell icon's lit up so you get everything that DRF TV has to offer. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the YouTube player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. So the stakes recaps and the thoughts will come, but more sort of in the middle portion of this. We're going to kick things off, though, with the remainder, the balance of the Preakness new shooter contender profiles. Let's get things going with the local hope, Alwaysmining. The local hope for the 2019 Preakness is Alwaysmining, trained by Kelly Rubley, a 3-year-old gelding, a son of Stay Thirsty. Distance doesn't look like it should be an issue. He's done nothing wrong here as a 3-year-old, a perfect 3 for 3, and even going back to last year, shortly after getting into Rubley's barn and moving back over to the main track, this horse has been on an absolute tear. He's won 6 consecutive races, and look at these win margins. 11.5, 6 3/4, 4 1/4, 1.5, 2.5, 10. He's beaten some good horses, too. You see Win-Win-Win's name in here. Say what you will about Great Magician, but we saw what he did over in Dubai. He was humbled by Alwaysmining. Jovea, again, say what you will, but he's a solid enough 3-year-old. Maybe he's not a classic 3-year-old, but he's a nice horse. Our Brain Trust, we've seen him in some graded stakes races. Alwaysmining has answered every call here that has been thrown his way. It seems as though his best running style is when he's out there on the lead, but it's nice to see that in the Tessio, granted, he was 1-20. But it was nice to see in the Tessio that he has the ability to come from off the pace and be effective. We're going to go to the tape. You see him on the outside here. White cap, white body with a little bit of a brown triangle in there. He's going to roll up and absolutely dust by this field. You see the fractions. They weren't going that fast, but he goes on and does this very professionally, very easily. Now, the question for a horse like Alwaysmining, if you like him in here, again, at face value, it's difficult to knock anything that he's done. I think the real question is, does he class up to this level against this level of company, these 3-year-olds, whether they're horses exiting the Derby or any of the other new Preakness fresh faces, the new shooters? Because what you're seeing on tape right here is a very talented racehorse. And again, distance, I don't think is going to be an issue for him. Gets this mile and 1/8 very comfortably. The question is, do you think he can handle another hiking class? I don't think the distance is going to be the thing that gets him. If anything does get him, it could possibly be just facing better horses. But I'm not going to sit here and say by any stretch of the imagination that this is a no-hoper. I think he's got a big chance in a race like this, especially if you think that this 3-year-old crop, which to date it's been as topsy-turvy as we've seen in a number of years, why not the local hope? Why not the horse that won the Tessio going into the Preakness, the Maryland bred? Why couldn't he get the job done this coming Saturday down there at Pimlico? I think Alwaysmining, if you're not sold on any of the more well-known names, why not take a nice square price on a horse like this that's done absolutely nothing wrong for nice local connections? Laughing Fox enters the Preakness on the heels of a win in the inaugural Oaklawn Park Invitational for 3-year-olds. He's trained by Steve Asmussen, goes out. Ricardo Santana Jr. will have the ride. Very clearly, this is a horse that has top flight connections. The question now becomes, is he good enough to win on a stage like this, like the Preakness? You see from a career best number of 91 on the Beyer scale. Probably not fast enough. Going to need to take a significant step forward. The interesting thing for me with Laughing Fox, I gave him a look in the Rebel 3 starts back. Arkansas Derby, I said maybe you want to use him underneath. He came along with a little bit of a bit at the end. He did finish tenaciously in this Oaklawn Invitational. We're going to take a look at that replay right now. You can see they're getting ready to round the far turn. The fractions have been swift, and I think that helps a horse like Laughing Fox, certainly. He's going to be about mid-pack rolling up on the far outside in the blue silks with the white sleeves. The big concern for a horse like this is twofold. The speed figure question, which, again, he's going to need to answer that, no question, but also the pace situation where he feels like he is genuinely a 1 sort of run dependent on pace kind of horse, where if they don't go fast in front of him, it's going to be very difficult for him to take advantage. And you see him here, he finishes tenaciously, he's going to prevail by about a neck. Night Ops tries to come back just on the inside. I look at him and say, I think Laughing Fox will run all day. The question is, again, is he fast enough? And if he doesn't get the big pace to run at, how does that ultimately affect his chances of winning? To me, he's that kind of horse that you're probably looking at perhaps better used underneath, unless when the PPs come out here in a few days, you look at it and you say there's speed on top of speed on top of speed, and you think he's going the right way for Asmussen and company. Perhaps he's going to be an upset special. Maybe you want to give him a little bit more extra credit for that Oaklawn Invitational, simply because you take a look at the chart and formulator, you can see Laughing Fox is really the only one of the top four that came from any sort of distance out of it. The top three were all relatively close to the front end, including 33 to One Shot Proverb, who was out there cutting out the fractions. So maybe you want to give Laughing Fox some extra credit. He was also wide down the backside and rounding the far turn, but I think all of those things, look, I've maintained, I understand you want to save ground, shortest distance around the racetrack. If I have a horse coming from the back, I would rather be a little bit wide and make sure that I don't get stopped than have to try to weave through traffic. Laughing Fox, I think, is an interesting underneath candidate. I don't know that I'm sold on his chances of winning a race like the Preakness, but again, if you get big pace and you think he takes another step forward here on Saturday afternoon, maybe Laughing Fox is going to be an interesting big price that can get the job done in the Preakness. Market King will be going into the Preakness as a fresh face for the coach, Wayne Lucas, and we've seen in relatively recent times the coach be able to come through and score an upset in the Preakness. Did so with Oxbow back in 2013. It'll be interesting to see what kind of trip Market King works out, and just when you look at it, it's very difficult to really make a major case for this horse. Clearly, they paid a hefty price for him back at the Keeneland September 2017 sale. They paid $550,000 for him. The pedigree is pretty solid, but he just hasn't really taken a tremendous step forward here through 8 lifetime starts. He is only a maiden winner thus far. That maiden victory came going a mile and 16th at Oaklawn, but he only earned a 73 buyer that day. There was moisture in the track, so perhaps he would move up if you ended up with some sort of a wet track. For the Preakness here coming up on Saturday, we're going to go back to his run 2 starts back, which from a figure standpoint, is actually the best race he has run to date. That was the Grade 2 Rebel. You're going to see, look, he's in with some toughies. You see Omaha Beach, you see Game Winner, and right in here, this is Market King. It looks like he's going backwards. He's actually going to stay on and finish 3rd, but when I say stay on, he is not remotely close to the top 2. The top 2 are going to be about 6-7 lengths in front of him when it's all said and done. I think this is a fine effort from Market King. I don't think it's good enough to win a race like the Preakness. Heck, I don't think it's good enough to be competitive in a race like the Preakness. You're looking at Market King if you want to make a case for him and say perhaps the pace is a little bit on the more moderate side. He can be forwardly placed. He has Wayne Lucas in his corner. That should be to his advantage. And you know what? Maybe this is not a great group of horses that will be running in the Preakness. And when I say that, I maintain it's too early to make a definitive statement one way or the other, but when you factor in that the first 4 horses that crossed the wire first in the Kentucky Derby are not running here, then you know what? It is a little bit more of a crapshoot. It's a little bit more of a wide open race. If you're trying to make the case for Market King, I think that's the argument you are trying to make. Having said that, following that Rebel effort, he came back in the Bluegrass and he just laid a complete egg. It's difficult for me to make a real case for Market King, but if you like him and for some reason he wins, you're going to get paid because he's going to be a giant price in this year's Preakness. Of the new shooters for the Preakness, I feel like there's a real chance that Owendale might be one of the hottest ones coming in for Brad Cox on the heels of a giant, very impressive victory in the Grade 3 Lexington at Keeneland. This is a horse that has always hinted at some ability. And then you factor in some other pieces here. The connections needed to supplement Owendale to this race for $150,000. We're not talking about chump change here. That's a lot of money to be putting up. So they must be very confident with their horse coming into a race like this. And look, on the heels of the Lexington, kind of hard to argue. We're going to take a look at that tape right now. He's in these purple silks with the yellow sleeves, about mid-pack, being pumped along a little bit out in the clear, but he's going to come with a very eye-catching move, just loops the entire field, and it's not like the fractions were that fast. You take a look up here, 24-1, 48-1, 12-4 for 3/4, and Owendale just goes on his merry way. Looks very impressive winning this race. Again, with that giant supplemental fee, I kind of look at it and say they're not doing that unless they think they can come here and win this race and make a stallion of Owendale right now. That's not to say that he won't continue to improve and do bigger and better things down the road, but they must be very, very confident with their horse. And by the way, he's just running by a horse in another Twist of Fate who's going to be one of the more fancied options for the fresh faces in the Preakness here. So there's a lot going in this horse's way. You have Brad Cox. Take a look at this big bullet here on May the 11th down at Churchill Downs. Best of 31 work in a shade over 59 seconds. There's a lot to like here. I didn't like him going into the Risen Star because there was a giant discrepancy between this 91 Beyer that he earned in this N1X race and the Timeform US rating that he earned. They weren't remotely close. There was a big discrepancy, and it made it look like Timeform had him considerably slower. Well, I don't want to say that bore out in the Risen Star. Something could have clearly gone wrong. He missed 2 months. The difference with the Lexington, not nearly as large a chasm between well, I shouldn't say that. There is a larger chasm, but that means that the numbers seem to kind of bear out with one another. The 98 Beyer, and I believe right around a 120 Timeform US rating. So both of the figures sort of check one another out. If you're looking for a fresh face, and again, I believe he might be one of the more fancied ones coming into this spot, combined with that giant supplemental fee that the connections are putting up, I think Owendale, you have to look at him as a live chance in this year's Preakness. Brad Cox sends out Owendale for the Preakness. He also sends out Warrior's Charge. This is a lightly raced son of Munnings, a 3-year-old. He has done little wrong. 2 of 5 lifetime, 3 times a third-place finisher. The real intriguing piece with this horse is the running style change and what it has resulted in, because his first 3 lifetime starts, he came from off the pace. 2 of them were sprint races, yes, but he did try 2 turns, and he was sitting a little bit farther off of it. Ran fine, but nothing spectacular. Then there is a change in tactics. He goes right to the lead in each of his past 2, and he puts on shows, earning Beyers of 89 and 97. 97 first time against winners. We're going to take a look at that run right now. Look, there's really not a heck of a lot to see here. He's out on the front. He's just better than these horses, and he puts on a show. You see the 3/4 split of 11 and 2? This is I don't think the pace is ballistic, but I don't think it's slow. I think it's an honest enough go of it. The question that you as a handicapper now need to answer for a race like the Preakness: 1, can he do this against better horses? But more importantly for me, 2, the pace dynamic. If you look at this and you think that there is going to be big speed signed on, or there's going to be enough speed in here, is a horse like Warrior's Charge capable of getting out there, dueling with other horses, putting them away, and then holding off the sort of late charge from those horses, whether they're just off the pace or coming from way out of it? Or, if you think the pace is going to be very fast, does Warrior's Charge have the ability to sit off of a target and still be as effective and win, well, let's just say win, period, but be as effective and perform as well as he has in each of these past 2 where he's been out there cutting out the fractions all on his own? He's a fascinating entrant in here because from a number standpoint, he is fast enough to win this race. He is a dangerous sort of contender for me, though, personally, when I handicap a race, because he has not proven to me, he's not shown me yet that he can sit off of a target and be as effective as he has been when he's out there on the lead. If he gets the lead, he's obviously a major threat to win this race. Who knows? He's probably a major threat to win this race even sitting off of a target, but he's yet to show me that he can do that, and now doing it against the best field that he's ever faced? A lot to ask. We'll find out. Who knows? Maybe when the PPs come out, he is controlling speed and he'll be able to go out there and dictate things. Warrior's Charge is going to be one of those horses for me that I have a difficult time making a call on. It's kind of all or nothing for me. We'll find out when the PPs come out and we see what the final field looks like. Warrior's Charge, if he can cut out the fractions, he's a major threat. And who knows? Maybe he's still a major threat even if he can't get out there and cut out the fractions in the Preakness. So again, we won't do any of the in-depth recaps. We're going to go through and just basically throw a blanket over everything. Going to be the stakes montage. I'll do some quick hits. Then we'll get into the weekend's best as far as Beyers are concerned. So let's dive right into it. Let's take a look at the stakes montage.
Hunting Horn turned for home with a 7-length lead here. But now here comes Channelmaker and Magic Wand. They're up 2nd and 3rd, trying to close in. Hunting Horn trying to hold on. Here comes Channelmaker on the outside, ranging up alongside. Magic Wand and Arc Lower closing in 2. Channelmaker strikes the front. Channelmaker wins the Man of War. And then it was Federal Case gives way on the inside. Final Jeopardy trying to come on in the center. Intrepid Heart not today. And now from the back of the pack, Sir Winston is getting going too, and he's rolling down the center of the racetrack. Coming down to the final 16th. It is Global Campaign holding on to the lead. Sir Winston Trying hard late, but not going to catch Global Campaign, who won the Peter Pan. Sir Winston Chipolata comes off the turn in front, and Dina Del Sur a length and a half behind. On the inside is Competition of Ideas. Maddie's Magnum gives way as Homerique begins her run down the center of the course. Competition of Ideas is coming up the rail. Homerique is closing on the outside. Chipolata gives way between those two Chad Brown runners, and Homerique storms to the front. And Homerique wins the Bogey over stablemate Competition of Powers comes under pressure. Holiday Disguise comes wide, and Pacific Gale cuts the corner. Heaven Has My Nikki arriving at the gate pole in front by 2. The main threat may be Pacific Gale, who comes one off the rail and up into second, and then it's Separation of Powers in third. It is Heaven Has My Nikki, Pacific Gale coming. These two down to the line. Heaven Has My Nikki goes all the way in the
Lynn's Legacy, Giliana, and on the inside, Kodiak West. There's a furlong left to go, and the Santa Barbara belongs to Cause for Commotion, who just put on a show this afternoon, traveling beautifully throughout and striding clear to win by a block. Cause for Commotion and Giovanni Franco by 9. Lynn's Legacy second, Giliana third.
They're into the stretch, recruiting ready. Here comes Firenze Fire, revving it up on the outside and right on by. Firenze Fire to the front, pulling away from recruiting ready Killybegs captain and Bon Raison as they come down to the line. Firenze Fire scores in the run happy. And that it was recruiting ready, Bon Raison.
Man of War, Channel Maker, he takes his game to the next level at Belmont Park. There's just something about that turf course that he loves. When he's at his best, he's as good as anyone here in the United States. Problem is, when he's at his best, who knows when that's going to happen. Clearly at Belmont, he's probably going to run quite well, but he's had enough of those kind of clunkers thrown in there that he's just kind of a difficult one to trust, I think, anyway, at this point. Ambitious ride on Hunting Horn, but I got to be honest with you, I loved it. Thought everything about it was great. And I do wonder if instead of 22 and change for that opening quarter, if it's 23 and a piece, and let's say you're 3 lengths slower, sure, everybody else can be a little bit closer, but do you have 3 lengths left in the tank down the lane? Who knows? Interesting little thought bubble there going forward. Peter Pan, giant effort from Global Campaign. This is a horse that's always hinted at ability. I was questioning, they wanted to run him in the Pate Mile 2 weeks ago. Obviously, a one-turn mile, but getting out to this one-turn mile on an 8th, I was fearful that off the bench, even if he was going to be able to get the distance at some point, off the bench, would it be a little bit too much to ask? Giant effort from him. I don't know that I love the idea of him going out to 12 furlongs for a race like the Belmont. I haven't read one way or the other if they're looking at that race or they're going to look elsewhere, but I do think going forward, he's a horse that you have to look at, especially, we'll see what happens in the Preakness, but this 3-year-old division, a little bit helter-skelter right now. This could easily be a horse, I think, that could pop up and be a big-time player. The Bogey, Chad's got another monster. It looks like Homerique. I thought this was a tremendous effort from her, wide off of an absolute snail's pace in her first start here in the United States. I just thought she ran great that day, and I think she could be another monster going forward. Competition of Ideas, the other Chad in there, she ran really well too, and there's only, 3/4 of a length or a length difference between the two of them, but keep in mind, Competition of Ideas, just absolute dream trip up the wood. Meanwhile, Homerique is 4-5 path turn for home. Much would rather Homerique over Competition of Ideas going forward. Vagrancy, Heaven Has My Nikki wires the field. But a couple things that you want to take out of this race. It was the first time back for Separation of Powers, so maybe you want to give her the benefit of the doubt. The horse that I really want out of it is Pacific Gale. I thought she ran a tremendous race, especially rounding the far turn, so getting ready to turn for home. She is ready to go, and there's just no real spot for her to get through. She's a little bit uncomfortable. When she finally gets out into the clear, she kicked really, really nicely. She's the one. I'm not taking anything away from the winner. Good effort and a great ride on Heaven Has My Nikki, just going right to the front and saying, come and catch me. But going forward, I think Pacific Gale, to me, this was a very intriguing effort for her as far as this filly and mare sprint division is concerned. Santa Barbara out in Southern California, cause for commotion. She never looked like a loser. Bigger and better things for her still to come. The connections have mentioned the Beverly D over the summer as a possibility, and why not? Look, if she runs as well as she did that day on Saturday afternoon, she's going to be a handful in any race she shows up in. And the run happy back at Belmont, I thought it was a tremendous effort from Firenze Fire when he finally was, look, let's be honest, he never really was completely set down. He was just that much better than everyone else. And if you're going to get that version of Firenze Fire going forward, you have to look at him as a major player in any Grade 1 race or any graded stakes race as far as the dirt sprinters are concerned here in the States. So there you have it, the quick hits stakes montage for the week. We'll get back to doing the full recaps next week, obviously with the Preakness. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look at the weekend's best. As far as Beyer speed figure performances are concerned, have every division covered for you. 3-year-old males on dirt. Global Campaign, 101 in the Peter Pan. 3-year-old fillies on dirt. CC, a 94 to non-winners and one other than out at Santa Anita. 3-year-old males on grass. Electronic, a 76 in a maiden special weight race. 3-year-old fillies on grass. Change of Control, 86 in a stakes race down at Churchill Downs. Older males on dirt. The 106 from Firenze Fire, just in a smashing effort in the run. Happy. Older fillies and mares on dirt. Heaven Has My Nikki and Lady Ninja. We just saw Heaven Has My Nikki. She won with a 95 in the Vagrancy. And Lady Ninja, she earned a 95 Beyer as well. In a different race, older males on turf, Channel Maker, a 106, winning the Man of War. And the older fillies and mares on turf, Magic Wand, coming up from across the pond for Aidan O'Brien. She earned a 104 in that exact same race. So there you have it, the weekend's best as far as Beyers are concerned here on the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. However you've been listening, thanks for doing so. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Don't be afraid to hit that follow button over there as well. I will be back with the preview edition coming up on Thursday. And we'll be looking ahead to the big one, the second jewel in the United States Triple Crown. We'll be looking at the Preakness. Might look at one or two other races as well and get you ready for some good stuff down in Baltimore this upcoming weekend. Best of luck until then. However you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. This has been the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.